Hey everybody, good afternoon. This is Brian Martin with Passageways. I'm joined with my brand new colleague, Gabe. Gabe is new to the CSM team. He's our newest hire. Say hi, Gabe.
Hello, everyone.
Gabe comes to us and he'll be joining us in the CSM team working with OnBoard customers in the financial industries, also working with those folks that have both our ensemble and onboard customers. So it'll be really exciting to have him join the team. He's going to be helping me field your questions today, running the chat lines. So just as a refresher, as always, today, feel free to use the Q&A tool to ask any questions that you might have as they come up. We'll endeavor to answer all of those as best we can. If you have just general, if you have something you want to say, question, background, stuff like that, feel free to use the chat window. If it's just a general, hey, I love OnBoard, because we love to hear that kind of praise as well. Just get started. Kind of our topic of conversation today is OnBoard and how to take annotations and notes with OnBoard. Kind of a back to school theme for August. Those of you with families are probably getting all the kids ready for school, sending them off, first lunches, backpacks, and really excited to see that. But as you know, being prepared for school isn't what it used to be. 30 years ago, the 5 hours of note taking, I found this and I thought they were kind of interesting. Recording and reducing and rewriting and reciting your notes, reflecting on them, reviewing them all on paper packets. Some of these are actually still pretty helpful, I think, in a lot of ways. If you look at these in a general point of view, even in 30 years, some of these can still be useful to us, even in a financial industry, even in whatever organizations that we work with. There's some good background there. But moving on, we have how to take effective notes for the digital. Sorry, we're getting a little bit of background noise there. How to take notes in a digital age, how to be effective. One of which is true, I think, in any circumstances, is stay engaged. You might be using your notebook, you might be typing in your notes, you might be using your mobile devices, tablets to be taking notes. The point is you still want to be engaged with what the speaker's doing. It's easy to get distracted opening up second windows, looking at an email, but be focused on the conversation, be focused on what's going on around you, and then move on appropriately. That way you stay focused on the conversation, taking the notes, what you're discussing. Consolidating your notes, going through, there's no reason to take 5 notes in the same topic. Feel free to just keep adding to those. You can, within OnBoard, we're going to go into a little live demo shortly, but you have the ability to go back into a note and edit it, change it, add content to it after you've put it down there. The third one here, obviously OnBoard's going to help you with, make your notes available anywhere. You never have to worry about which notepad did you take your notes for the last meeting. Where did I leave that on my desk? Did I put it in my briefcase, my backpack? With OnBoard, once you take your notes electronically, doesn't matter if you took them on your laptop, doesn't matter if you took them on your iPad, your phone even, those notes are still accessible anywhere you can log back into OnBoard, whether it's a month later or a year later. As long as you don't take the time to go in and delete old notes or annotations. I like this fourth tip as well. And I think this is a capability we forget. Just because OnBoard doesn't have a voice recorder built into it, doesn't mean that you don't have that capability in your hands when you're using electronic devices. Attaching a microphone, a good quality microphone to your iPad, to your laptop, and recording the meeting as they go on. There's so many free quality voice recording tools that are out there. Being able to kind of review your notes and maybe like listening into certain sections of a discussion after the fact can really give you, help you double check your notes, going over to, was that Bob that said that? Was that Steve? Was that Mary? who exactly made that comment. Going back and listening later is easy. And I think can be really helpful to make sure you're getting the most out of your note-taking experience. We've started recording lots of our meetings, and it's really helped to be able to go back and listen to that recording. You can even store those recordings inside of OnBoard with our resource folder. You can take those recordings, store those in a resource folder, and have access to them or share access to them with others after the fact. That you have the capability. And fifth, note tip for digital note taking: choose a tool and be consistent. And I think that's true of anything, but when you're using a new method, whether that's digital note taking, whether that's taking up a new hobby or an instrument, the more you do it, the consistently, the better you're going to get at it. Obviously, using and engaging with OnBoard on a regular basis, creating our meetings, putting materials out there for everyone, it's something we're going to get, we as time goes on, it becomes second hand, but using the tool, the solution to take your notes, make annotations, that's something you have to kind of force yourself to start doing, I think. But once it becomes natural, once it becomes intuitive, you kind of wonder, why didn't I do this in the first place? Always. And the more you do it, I think the easier it'll get. So just kind of going over a high-end view of the different annotation tools inside of OnBoard. Obviously, there are three main annotation tools. The notepad for the virtual sticky note, post-it note that you're used to having. The nice thing about those is there's really no limit to the amount of text you can put in there. You can make them pretty much as long and extensive as you want. You can go back and edit them, whether for changing the color of the note card. So you can kind of sort them by topic. You can always go back, reopen them. Additional content can be added to the note. And if you're using the web browser tool, you can cut and paste content into or out of the notepad. That's going to be really important. As an example, we're going to set a little later to show a way to kind of use that note-taking tool to help kind of generate some minutes that you can use after. I know there's lots of administrators there over the time that we've talked to on a number of different occasions that ask us, well, does OnBoard have a minute tool? Is there a way I can create minutes easily inside the solution? And I can't take credit for this. One of my organizations kind of shared how they do it with me, how they leverage the note-taking tool to kind of build some minutes on there, and made it kind of effective. Highlighter tool, pretty self-explanatory. If you've used a paperboard book and you're able to ever take a highlighter to it, also can be color-coded for whatever you're working with. It's important to know the highlighter tool is only going to work with document files inside of OnBoard. So sometimes I know people tend to put loading PDF files into OnBoard. When you do so, you want to make sure that you're using the PDF document format, because that's going to allow the highlighter to work effectively. If you're just taking an image scan, that's a PDF image scan, and loading that into OnBoard, you're not going to be able to use that highlighter tool as effectively. This works really well too with a stylus, or if you have a user that's using like an iPad or the iPencil. I've heard a lot of positive feedback on that experience with the highlighter. And then also for the freehand tool. It's that true pen and paper experience. You can write yourself a little note directly onto the board packet. You can use it as a stencil tool, be able to sketch a little, draw a little during the board meeting if you have an artistically bent board member who might be a little bored. But it's really nice for quick notes or short reminders. If you want to circle something that you feel is worthy of more attention, you can do so with that. And with a little bit of practice, you can use that freehand tool to highlight an image file. So there is a control with the highlighter tool, or with the freehand tool, where you can change the opacity of the pen If you lighten the opacity where it's more see-through, you can use that over a document file that's an image, and it would kind of act as similar to a highlighter. So it's a way to kind of make that work with a highlighter tool. So Gabe, any questions from our audience?
No questions, but we might want to just clarify in respect to audio files being uploaded directly to resource folder, that particular file type can't be uploaded directly. But
that's right.
But one suggestion would be uploading that to like a YouTube or other site where you can use that link and then have the link. So still same concept, but just wanted to get that clarification.
No, that's thanks for reminding me of that. I should have been a little clear with that. So you take that recording, that audio recording, you upload that in, say, an internal shared drive at your organization, maybe a Dropbox file, maybe a Google Drive file, and then share that link, which is totally something you can do inside of the onboard resource folder, is share a link, and then that people have access to that link wherever they go to access onboard. No more searching for it or losing it. So yeah, that's a really good clarification. Thanks for keeping me honest on that, Gabe.
No problem.
See how much he's picked up so quick, folks? We're lucky to have him.
And one person just commented about voice fading in and out a little bit. So I'm just clarifying if that's still the case, but just might keep that in mind.
Okay. So we'll do our best to, we have a nice mic that we have shared here in our recording studio. I'll make sure to speak up, keep it clear for you folks. So next I want to go into a little bit of a live demo of the onboard environment, showing specifically how those annotation tools work. Appreciate your patience. So here we have our typical sample board meeting document. Our note-taking tools, as we discuss, on the web browser are going to be located here at the top. And this is actually going to mirror the experience pretty closely on a mobile browser. The iOS, I believe, has the icons in the exact same area. The Android will soon, we have an update coming out for Android that will have that same mirrored experience. I've already seen an early alpha test of it. I'm looking forward to those changes. So the notepad, the comment, as they call it here, very simple. You can tap, post, and then type in your notes as extensive as you'd like to make them. But you can go back and edit those. That's an important thing. So if I make a nice note here, I type it in and I want to add more to it, I can just go back to edit and I can add more to it. Obviously, there's a lot of people out there who probably type better than I can, but just to give you an example here. But I wanted to point out too, that if you're using the web browser, so if you're using a laptop or a desktop to take your notes, if you're the administrator, you have your laptop there and you're typing your notes. If you use this, the note-taking tools inside of OnBoard for that, you can copy and paste. So if there's sections, if there's you want to take some information that you put in a note, cut it, or well, copy it, and then post it in, say, a Word file for later. If you're taking your notes, you want to save them all in one place, you can do that. You can cut and paste, take that note outside of your annotation, and then save it again, paste it into, say, a Word file that you're working on or some other document file, maybe to help create your minutes each month. This is something an organization that I work with shared with me how they do it. That way they can put their notes for a particular section or agenda item in that section or agenda and be able to access it later and know that that's what those notes are for. Color code it. So I can go back in here and I can change the palette. So let's say if it's maybe it's a critical note, something that I've put in here before the meeting that I definitely want to cover. Maybe I read something and I'm worried about some of the jargon, some of the phrasing that's put in here that I don't think legal would be very appreciative of how we phrase something. I can make this a note for myself, and I can make it critical, make it red like that, so I know that this is something I definitely want to bring up and inquire about. I think it's very important for the meeting itself. Or if it's something, say, I'm really happy about, maybe I want to give praise to the people that put together the packet, or I see something in here that I really want to express my admiration on, I can make it green. Know that it's something that I'm happy about, something I'm glad about. Or if it's something I'm just curious about, I had a question, I want to dig in a little deeper on this, maybe I don't understand, that I want to come into more detail, I can put that in that yellow, just something that I'm curious about. And those same tools, same colors can be used with other tools. So if we have here the highlighter tool, the freehand tool, highlighters this person right here, and I can just simply highlight and change that color as I go back onto it. Obviously, it's a little more clear, opaque, so I can see it easier later. Freehand tool, again, pretty self-explanatory. Now, you can also make adjustments to that freehand tool for how thick you want that line. You want more of a thin line. You want more of a thick line. But I can even go back, select that, and change that after the fact. So if I want to make that more see-through, I can adjust that. If I want to change the thickness of it after I drew it, I can do that. It's a pretty versatile tool set, the annotations.
And Brian, Lisa has a question in regards to the note section, whether there's a character limit or not.
Okay, so I'm assuming that she's meaning in the comment in the notepad section. So as far as a character limit, no, I don't. I've seen, talked to people that have left very extensive notes. I don't really think I've ever run into a hard limit on the size of those notes. That's not to say that there isn't. I'm afraid I don't know the definite answer for that. But the fact of the matter is, I think it's pretty extensive, because we could actually, let's test that. We'll use our cut and paste that we were just discussing earlier. We're going to copy, paste, and paste, and paste. Well, it looks to be at least several hundred characters. So we're going to put that as a hard, probably not. There doesn't seem to be a limit. Go back and view it again. Well, maybe it didn't save. Or you know what? I also got to hit save before we exit out. Yeah, hitting save after the note, let it be quite extensive. Simple thing to miss, but easy to kind of go back to. And again, when you're using the annotation tools, as you go back into it, you can search those a couple different ways. The easiest, so let's go ahead and put some notes later on in the book. One other thing you can use the annotation tool for that is almost like a bookmark tool. So let's say I can put for myself, make a note here that's a simple page 112. And then I can go back if that's a comment I want to look at, something I want to discuss as we go into our board meeting. And I want to skip ahead to page 112 by clicking on the annotation tab here on the side. I can see all my annotations. I can click on the one for page 112, and it's going to take me right there, no matter where else I was in the book. So you can use that as a quick bookmark to go back and forth within the scope of the board book. Any other questions? I saw a couple comments pop up. Maybe
We were just, Becky was just clarifying that this was in a board book that you were doing the annotations in, and just noted that
both the board book and also then documents within the resource section could be applicable.
We have in the resource, one of the features we added in a more recent update was the ability to go into our resource folder and make annotations inside of a resource folder document. So here I have a copy of my imaginary saving bank bylaws. And you'll notice now, just like as it is in the meeting book, there's those same annotation tools that are available. Freehand drawing. And it's going to remember my settings from one section to the other because I'm still in my same logged in. So if I have the default as a yellow note, it's going to remember that, keep it yellow when I go back into different documents.
Maybe just a general question. Now on that, can you only see those comments, or could anyone within the organization then that has access to OnBoard also see those comments?
So that's a really good question. So there's really two answers. As a default, something that the annotation feature is available to every OnBoard customer. It doesn't matter what package you have, anybody can take notes. As a default, those notes are private. When I take annotations, when I take notes, those are personal notes. So Brian putting on my board of director member hat. If I'm a member of the board of directors, I'm taking those notes privately. Those are only my notes. The chairman is not going to see those. The board administrator is not going to see those. Those are just my notes as a default. Now, for those customers of ours that have signed up for OnBoard and have the collaboration package, those OnBoard customers that have the enterprise package, that includes a feature that we call shared annotations. And I'll go back into our meeting and kind of display that, because the shared annotations at this time is only on annotations that are within a meeting book, though that's probably going to be an update later. So shared annotations gives you the ability to select a specific item, a specific note, annotation, and share it with others within the solution. So if I go here to one of my annotations, there is the controls that you'll see here next to those notes. So if I have that very large gobbledygook note that I took earlier, I have the ability to share that with others because of, in my demo environment here, I have the enterprise package. So I have the ability to share those notes. You'll see an icon like this that allows me to click on it and see other attendees of the meeting. So I can select either specific members that have access to the meeting, and this can only be shared with people who have regular access to the meeting. I cannot share this with people that do not already have permissions within the meeting. But I can select a particular person, say Dana Gray here. I can select multiple people, Gilbert and Amber, or I could select the entire team membership. And then very simply here at the bottom, I hit the button Start Sharing. You'll notice now the icon has changed. It's gone from just the ability to add members to it to show a little check mark that shows I have shared it. And I can click back on that and see exactly who I shared it with. So now that note is going to appear on everyone that I shared it with notebook or board book. I can, if I need to, stop that. I can go back here. I can go into the particular note, hit the sharing icon, and deselect all, where it's no longer selected everybody. Hit Save Change. That basically unsaves it. Or there was, you might have noticed when after I shave, here, let me shave it real quick, or share it real quick. Here, so I've shared this note again with everybody. If I wanted to stop sharing all my notes with everybody, I can just hit that master control here and it'll give me the option to stop sharing all my notes. So again, that's part of the collaboration package. It's part of the enterprise package to be able to share that note. But that is it's a separate from our core annotation functionality. But anybody has the ability to take private notes, private annotations within OnBoard. Every OnBoard user has that capability, and those annotations are saved for themselves within the board book indefinitely. So you rest assured, if you're the administrator and you take notes, you do not have to worry about, unless you specifically take steps to allow that, you do not have to worry about your board members seeing your notes and vice versa. Now, I do want to stress, let's say circumstance, you take some private notes, and then maybe you're one of those organizations that use an overhead projector, or you put up your board book on the big screen TV that's in your meeting book. Well, you might not want everybody to see your private notes and annotations. You can temporarily hide those. If you're doing a screen share like I'm doing here, and I have my wonderful artwork that you can see here, perhaps this isn't the most professional view, and I want to remove those so other people can't see them. If they're looking over my shoulder or hiding a screen, very simply, all I have to do is go down here to the controls for my annotations, select hide annotations, and it's gonna hide all my annotations have disappeared. They haven't gone anywhere. They haven't been deleted. They're just in a hidden status. So now I can feel confident to share my screen, let somebody look over my shoulder, show them the board book I was just looking at, and go, well, this is the part I was talking about, pointing at the iPad, the imaginary iPad in my hand, and without them having to see my private annotations. And then later, I can always go back and view them again by changing that control there.
As a quick follow-up to the shared annotations aspect,
Bob would like to know whether or not the people who you were sharing the annotation with receive a notification that the annotation has been shared with them.
So that's a good question. The annotation tools, basically they would get a notification here inside of OnBoard. So they would have a little pop-up that says, hey, the annotation's been shared with you. You'd see that notification, be able to go into it. They don't receive an outside notification. They don't receive an email that a notification's behalf. And it is important to know that they need to refresh the meeting. Basically, they need to log out and log back into the meeting or reload the meeting for that annotation to show up. It's not real time like a messenger would be. Okay. I hope that answers your question.
if you want to take another question.
Yeah, perfect time.
Another question then, when using an iPad or an iPhone, or I guess any phone at that point, to view a meeting, the annotations cover part of the presentation. Is there a way to have it stay to the left side, like the agenda?
So the controls on that are kind of in the visibility here. If you're using an iPad, and I don't have one to show tied into our webinar today, but it depends on the rotation of the iPad. If you have it vertically or horizontally, that's going to change the visualization on the screen. But there are some controls up here that would allow you to kind of adjust like what's seen. For example, here I can control a little bit of my annotations. If I click that again, I can hide those. I can even hide this, so they're not covering up my board book. With an iPad, this is, I have the plus and minus control here. With an iPad, this is touch sensitive. So you basically take your two fingers and squeeze in and out to zoom in or zoom out of the screen. So imagine I'm taking my two fingers and zooming in and zooming out that way. Hopefully that answers the question. To hide those so you're not covering up your notes. And then if you want to expose those again, you can just come back here and hit those controls.
We seem to have a lot of things around the sharing of annotations.
Okay.
Another question from Bill is the ability to change the sharing of a note limited to the organizer or originator of the note itself?
It's a good question. So Bill, to answer that, basically, if I'm the originator of the note and I choose to share it with you, at that point, it's still my note. It's just showing up on your screen. You don't really have any further control over that, I'm afraid, as a recipient of that note. It's just being shared with you. The controls effectively are still with the person who first created the note. Now, let's say you wanted to share a note back or add a note. What you could do is put a second note next to it. Share that with the other person that you want to put it with, and almost act like, a side by side, like a book. You can put note here, note here, note here, note here. Of course, I'm moving my hands, and you people at home have no idea what I'm doing, but you could theoretically put each note next to one another in like a sequence. So here I'm making a note, and I share it with you, and then you could then send a note to me, put it just right next to it, and then right next to it, I put a response back, and kind of use that control that way. There's a couple of different capabilities. Now, we have previously talked about a messenger feature that's going to be included with the same onboard packages that include shared messaging. That's coming out very, very soon. I'm not going to make an official statement for that, but that might be a little more versatile for that back and forth conversation if that's what you're looking to have there. That's all I'll say about that without getting in trouble for myself. But there are some capabilities where you can share that. But yeah, if I share a note with you, you do not have the ability to share that with others because it's not your note to share. It's just been shared with you. The originator of the note is the person who can unshare it, add other people to share the note, things like that.
So Deborah would like to know, does a user's annotations sync across devices?
Yes, that kind of goes back to that conversation we had earlier, or in our best tips. Onboard annotations, because you are annotating your instance of the book. So when I take my notes in here on my web browser, that is when I pull up that book on my iPad, I'm going to see those same notes. If I pull that up on my phone, my Android phone, I'm going to see those same notes. Some of the controls might be a little different. So when I go to reopen that, for example, the ability to cut and paste notes, that does not exist in the iPad. So if I want to cut and paste and add to my note like I've done here in my sample, I can't do that on the iPad. I can, however, do it on the web browser and then view that cut and paste notes and stuff on the iPad, no problem. Some of the color visualizations might change a little bit depending on which platform you're looking at. So you might see slight variations in that color. But no, those notes, no matter where you take them, if you're using the same login, you're going to see those same notes across platform. Now, you might need to update if it's not, for example, if I take a note on my web browser, obviously here I'm connected to the internet, I'm connected to my network. Well, if I go, if I'm on a flight, let's say, and I pick up my iPad for the first time, and I have no internet connection on the plane, I view my book. If I have not connected my iPad to the internet since I made that note, and there's no internet connection, I'm not going to see that note. So there are some controls there, but if you have internet access on across your devices, you'll be able to see those notes no matter what platform. So there's, with a couple of caveats there, a couple of specific use cases where that might come up and be a problem.
Okay. And I think we have time for one more question here, at least related to the shared annotations or annotations as a whole. Tanya would like to know, are the annotations tied to the specific pages within documents? As an administrator, if I have published a book and then need to make changes, add pages to a book, would like the notes to be overwritten, is it best to add the new documents at the bottom or end of the book? Or they maybe need it, or would then maybe not have an impact any prior notes made by others?
Okay.
Maybe talk to that process.
So this is a very common question we get. And it is very specific. There's a lot I can go into here, and I'm going to do my best to cover it all in the time we have remaining in our chat today. So thank you for the question. So when I make annotations to a book, those annotations are tied to the document that's in that section. So for example here, I have made these notes on page 7 of the land policy land bank policy procedures Word file that I have attached to the document. If I go ahead and need to replace that document, let's say a week before the meeting, we get a brand new version of land bank policy. It's land bank policies 2.0. If I've opened this board book up and people have made notes in that section, and I replace that document with another document, if I delete this document and add it again, those notes will go away because that where they're anchored to no longer exists. Now, there is a very specific set of circumstances where you can save that, where you don't necessarily, if you're just updating a document, you're not changing the actual file, but I'm just making changes to an existing document. There is a tool that many of you will have access to. There's an Office connector. It's available here. It's a very specific. You have to know where to look for it, and it's not currently with every customer we're discussing. You have access to it in enterprise level. I believe professional level customers have it. Anybody with the newer packages, you might see this as well. But if you go into your organizational info, there, right under where your logo can go, for some reason it's a picture of a meeting that we had on my particular book here, but there's an Office connector. This Office connector allows you to, when installed, directly, now this only works with Word files, Excel files, this only works with Office files. So if you're using PDFs and you're loading copies each time, this isn't going to work. But if you use Word files, Excel files, even PowerPoints, and once I've loaded a Word file into OnBoard, what I can do with this Office connector is, well, literally connect Office to OnBoard directly by logging in. This allows me to sync files directly from Office inside of OnBoard. We have some instructions. If you go to our help site, I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole today. But if you use those tools, if you use that tool, you can update a file inside of OnBoard without deleting it and re-adding it. If you do that, you will not remove the annotations. They might shift, they might move because they're tied to the document, not to a particular page in the document. So I might put those, if let's say I have a 10-page document there and I've made my notes on page 7 of those 10, and then I use the Office connector to update that file, and suddenly now it's a 12-page document. They might shift around in there, but they aren't going to be removed or deleted. So I hope that answers your question. If you would like to learn more about the Office connector, reach out to your CSM. We can schedule a time to give you a walkthrough how that works, how to install it. It's a very simple process, but it does need a little bit of tweaking to kind of get the hang of. Once you realize the capabilities, though, it can be a really useful tool to enhance your OnBoard experience.
And someone had asked about recording minutes directly into OnBoard, and I sent direct chat in regards to Office Connect, maybe an ideal workaround for that. So just if that may be another thing that you have questions on, again, echoing Brian's point, to just contact your customer success manager, and we can find out then what is best for your particular organization. Yeah, that's a really good point. And honestly, I've been with the company a couple of years now. When I first started, the Office Connect was a new feature, and I believe we kind of introduced that as a tool to help facilitate minutes creation using Word, something you can directly import into an existing Office or existing OnBoard meeting. It's not a tool that gets taken advantage of a lot. I think it's kind of underutilized, but it is available. We do have some training of it online on our website, Passageways. You can go to our help section, look for, just search for Office Connector, and it'll kind of walk you through how to install it, how it can be used, and how it can be leveraged a little bit. But your CSM, as always, is going to be your go-to expert on all things OnBoard. So we're nearing the end of our time together. Is there any other last-minute questions, Q&As, anything on annotations, notes, best practices? We covered a lot today, but I think this is one of those topics you can never really be done talking about.
There's always something else to learn, something else to dig into, other things to share, but I didn't want to take up more of your time than necessary. I want to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon. I want to thank Gabe, our brand new CSM, for his help. We threw him into the deep end of the pool, and he floated, so that went well. Gabe, anything?
No, it's a pleasure, and I look forward to working with more of you into the future.
Yeah, before we go, I want to quick give a heads up on what our next month's webinar topic we're going into. It's a topic we've covered sometime in the past, but I think it's one of those things that it's always good to bring back up. How to get your board all in with OnBoard, specifically how to overcome the misconceptions that board members might not be tech savvy and they might not be willing or able to use OnBoard. And I assure you from firsthand experience, we have very seasoned, experienced board members who have been able to fully engage and use OnBoard. So if you have doubts that your team, there might be members of your team or your board that would be able to use it, I assure you, we've seen it before, we've been able to overcome it, and that's going to be our topic of conversation next month, how we can help you overcome those objections to implementing OnBoard through your team. So thank you everybody for joining us. With that, I'll leave the message up, or the meeting up, for a little bit, but feel free to go on, and we'll of course, like always, we're going to have a recording saved and uploaded on our YouTube channel. Look for Passageways on YouTube. All our webinars are posted there for review at your convenience. And we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.